They approached the three-way junction, New Delhi, Central Mathura, Vrindavan. The driver struck the horse with his whip, and the tanga proceeded along the Vrindavan road, edging through a herd of white cows, the herdman walking amongst them, carrying his stick. The road was busy with tangas and slow creating ox cart loaded with market commodities and pulled by squat, black water buffalo. A string of small spindle-legged donkeys carried oversized load of firewood and sandbags. That's where we stopped yesterday. So we continue. Although much had changed in Abhay's life since he had come here to see his spiritual master during the parikrama years ago. What was the year was? 1932. Vrindavan had remained the same. He felt he had done the best thing in coming here, leaving the heat, the traffic and fumes, the human passions of Delhi. Haribol. You know, when I was in Phoenix in the Japa retreat, I give the same example, similar. But I use the analogy of this heating pot. You know, we have now the kettle, you turn on and the kettle will boil the water. So I give that example that if you turn on means you start the bhakti and then you don't maintain it, then you are turning off the switch. That's what we are doing. Then the thought came that how our culture is so rich that in kettle, at least when you turn on, immediately it will start heating up. But the example of the wood burning, that's very, very appropriate. That when you put the water on the wood become wet. So it has to dry and then it will ignite. So that example is more appropriate than the kettle one. So all our, culture is so rich. If we imbibe those things, our life will become so easy and peaceful. Sorry to get little diverted. It was a natural relief. Yet even as he felt transcendental emotions for Vrindavan, impressions of his months of preaching in Delhi lingered in his mind. The city street and himself going from place to place with his back to Godheads. Life in Delhi had been constant, vigorous preaching. Now he was more than 60-year-old, but he was not coming to Vrindavan to retire. He had retired from household responsibilities, but not from his responsibility of making back to Godhead as popular and sophisticated as illustrated weekly, sophisticated as illustrated weekly. He would live in Vrindavan and commute to Delhi, but he would never stop preaching. Haribol. Also when I was chanting, I see the people keep the dogs and that we should have so many gurus. We should pray to the dog to give us that loyalty they carry for that master, If we can learn that lesson from the dog, our life can become successful, that we should be dog of our spiritual master. The sight of taller trees signal the precinct of Vrindavan, because in the city you don't see good trees. Haribol. As the thin horse trotted along, past the police station and water trough for animals, on either side appeared the garden courtyard of private estate and ashrams. I see that when I went to Chandigarh, India, I was really impressed with that city because they have both side of the road mango trees, both side, and wide road, very nicely planned. I like that Chandigarh city. Haribo. Fragile white multi-flowers, golden marigolds, frangipani trees, and red hibiscus, trees of sorrow, and many other flowers and trees, some known only in Vrindavan, because this never goes out, Haribo, bloom forth in the brilliant sunlight. The Radha Govinda temple bloomed fortress-like on his left, and opposite, in the distance, the high-rising tower of the Ranganath temple. They entered narrow street, tighter and busier places with market and city dwellings. And then it became quieter again. At the end of a narrow street by the Yamuna River, near the Kesi bathing ghat, stood the small and beautifully ornate entrance of the Bansi Gopalji temple, a narrow three-story building with three domes and many decorated arches. Prabhupada will be staying here in that building. I saw the picture. I don't know who showed me that, but it was really, really austere. Maybe my Gurudev showed me something. I don't know. After stepping over the curbside drain and walking up 3 marble steps, Abhay entered the front door, the driver following him carrying the luggage. Once inside, Abhay removed his shoes and entered the courtyard, which was open to the sky through a metal gate, on which a few birds sat 2 floors above. A column of sunlight lit one side of the courtyard, where a potted tulsi sat atop a pillar. The temple seemed cool and quiet. Adjacent to the courtyard was a deity room, its doors locked shut. Overhead was a mezzanine with rooms whose entrances were visible from the courtyard. A few saris and strip of cloth hung on improvised clotheslines. Mahanta Gopal, the temple pujari, whom Abhay had known since 1954, greeted him cheerfully. He was about the same age as Abhay and had a long grey hair and an unruly beard. Although Abhay's attire was modest, he appeared well dressed compared with Gopal, who wore only a coarse dhoti. Gopal led Abhay upstairs. Coming out onto the roof, Abhay smiled to see again the wonderful vista. Barely 100 yards away, he could see the Yamuna. Not only the immediate patch of water flowing before him, but to his left and right, a broad, curving street of river, shimmering in the afternoon sun. There were sand deltas, herds of cows and buffalo grazing, the flat grassy banks of the Yamuna, plains and trees as far as the eye could see. And in the opposite direction was the town of Vrindavan, marked by dozens of temples, spires and domes. Abhay's room, the only one on the roof, was small, with narrow double doors and barred windows. Sitting on the apartment's roof, monkeys with their tiny offspring sat watching, unalarmed. Just outside the door, a 2 feet high cement pyramid signifying that the temple deity was directly beneath. Abhay entered the room through the bare window he could see the palace at Kesighat, the venerable tower of the Gopinath temple, and beyond, the uninterrupted flat river, the green banks, and the sky. After acquainting Abhay with the details of the room, the small kerosene burner, the rope, and the bucket for drawing bathwater from the well to the roof, Gopal meticulously produced a government stamp rental agreement. Abhay wrote a short paragraph declaring himself a disciple of the late Sri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada and attesting to his renting the room at 5 rupees per month. Both parties signed. After his bath, Abhay took prasadam and rested. When he heard the bells ringing in the temple below, he went down to see the deities. Gopal, who had been the temple's pujari for many years and had seen its reconstruction in 1923, had told Abhay that the temple deity, Vansi Gopalji, had been installed 350 years before by Mahant Prahlad Das of the Nimbarka Vaishnava Sampradaya. Gopal himself had installed the deity of Radharani, Vansi Gopalji, standing in a graceful threefold bending form and holding his flute, was very appealing. He was 3 feet tall and of black marble. Radharani, slightly shorter, was of brass. They were simply dressed in a rough white cotton and illuminated by the dim glow of a kerosene lamp. Abhay could see that the deity were being cared for, but because of poverty, there was no opulence. So he returned to the roof as the sun was setting over the town of Vrindavan. Having the entire roof's walkway to himself, Abhay walked and chanted Japa. Enjoyed the cooling early evening breeze from the Yamuna. Occasionally, a solitary boat would pass on the calm water of the Yamuna, and a devotee somewhere unseen could be heard chanting evening prayers at the Kesi Ghat. He felt pleased with this location in the heart of the pastime of Lord Krishna. He was not a newcomer spending his first day in the strange town. Everything here was already familiar and dear. As Vrindavan was Krishna's abode, Abhay was Krishna's servant, the servant of the 6 Goswamis, the servant of his spiritual master. He felt at home. As day turned to twilight, temple bells rang throughout the town. Abhay walked to the western side of the roof and looked into the city of thousands of temples. The Govindji temple, the Ranganath temple, and thousands of smaller temples were having their Sandhya Arati and Kirtan, glorifying Lord Sri Krishna. Abhay responded to the sights and sounds of Vrindavan as only a pure devotee could. His thoughts and emotions were full of appreciation and awareness of Krishna. Krishna's devotee and Krishna's land. Naturally, he began to think of preaching, hankering for others to know the intimate peace and ecstasy of Vrindavan. Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was inviting all souls to join him in his eternal abode. Yet, even in India, few understood. And outside India, people knew nothing of Vrindavan or of the Yamuna or of what it meant to be free of material desires. Why shouldn't people all around the world have this? This was the abode of peace, yet no one knew anything of it. Not were people interested, but this is what they were actually hankering for. Abhay thought of back to Godhead and how, by Krishna's grace, he might expand his preaching beyond India to the whole world. His godbrothers, it would have been better if they had all worked together in the Gaudiya Math, but many of them were at least keeping the regulator principles. None of them, however, seemed to be doing much beyond maintaining a temple here, an ashram there, worshipping a deity, eating and sleeping. Prabhupada always will say about eating and sleeping. But there was so much more to be done in broadcasting the glories of Vrindavan. Abhay chanted and thought of Krishna. Gradually he turned to his task of producing the October issue of Back to Godhead. And due to be printed shortly in Delhi, he had a deadline to keep. Next morning, before sunrise, the residents of Vrindavan were austere, bathing in the Yamuna, performing puja to their deities, reciting mantras. But Abhay was awake even before most, writing in stillness beneath the light in his rooftop room. As he wrote diligently in English, scriptural references appeared and took their place within convincing arguments. For hours he wrote, page after page, in an exercise book, until gradually the chirping of awakening birds signaled the end of the dark night's stillness. Soon the sun would rise. Prabhupada takes so much austerity. And we have to give little bit sleep here, we can't. Haribol. Keeping to his regular schedule, he put aside his writing and began chanting Japa. Staying in his room, uttering the Hare Krishna Mahamantra in a very soft, deep voice. Even before the first traces of light in the sky, before the river was visible, a few Babaji reciting prayers made their way through the streets, heading for the Yamuna. By 4 a.m., gongs and temple bells throughout the city heralded and Mangala Arati of the deity. Abhay continued chanting alone for another hour. Then he prepared to bathe, lowering the bucket on his long rope and holding water up to the rooftop. Haribol. It was light when he went out. His big bag around his neck, a few copies of Back to Godhead in his hand. Turning right at the temple door, he walked the tight, crooked lane, past alley, dirt paths, and cross lanes which interlaced in a winding network. There were no shops in the area, only silent buildings, many of them hundreds of years old. The neighborhood was serene. Behind closed shutters, someone played on wooden clackers and sang Hare Krishna softly. At a crossroad where dark women filled brass water pots from a well, Abhay turned left onto a street lined with a small open porches. On the other side, he saw ornate temple architecture, one entrance marked by two stone lions, another by a carved elephant with teeth like a tiger's. We need to put that in Houston Temple. But I'm looking, but I couldn't find really elegant, but devotee You also can look, you are all expert on Google and search everything. We want to have a nice one. A brick and mortar wall was crumbling with age. Soon Abhay arrived at the Radharaman temple, Haribol, established almost 500 years before the Gopal Bhatt Goswami, one of Lord Chaitanya's chief followers. Haribol. Gopal Bhatt Goswami, Venkata Bhatt, son, and Venkata Bhatt was in a Sri Sampradaya, and he was the head priest for the Ranganath temple in South India. And during the Chaturmash, Venkata Bhatt requested Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to stay with him at his house. And Gopal Bhatt was very young at that time. But he became so interested that actually when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, after the 4th year, he wants to leave, and Gopal Bhatt was ready to leave his house. But his father stopped him, Venkata Bhatt, and tell him, you just first take care. And when we leave this world, father and mother gone, then you can go to Vrindavan. And we see that what was the name of his uncle? Very profound. Uh, uh, Prabodhanand Saraswati. Yes, his uncle. So what a great association he had. Very great personalities. Here residents of Vrindavan were coming and going according to their vows, following a strict schedule that allowed not a moment's delay, making their daily visit to various temples. This is Brajvasis. Abhay entered and stood amidst a group of worshippers, viewing the devotee of Krishna, Radharaman, the deity wearing a fresh garland of flowers, his enchanting black form adorned with bright silk and jewels appeared very opulent. You know, this Gopal Bhatt Goswami in the Nepal, in Gandhika river, when he was taking bath in his kamandal, always the Sila was coming. He put down into the river. Again, when he tried to take the water to take a bath, Sila was coming. And then he accepted that that must be a God's will. So he bring 12 Silas. And then he started worshipping with his full heart. And I think one time, one merchant who has the, merchant has the money. So he bring many, many beautiful ornaments and outfit for the Silas. And he give it to Gopal Bhatt Goswami. Seeing that the dedication from the merchant, Gopal Bhatt Goswami became so happy that now I can dress all the Silas with beautiful ornaments. So in the night, he was just dwelling, he just delivered this ornament outfit. So at night, he was really requesting that, why don't you appear in a transcendental form so I can put all these ornaments and the garments that the merchant has given me. So surprisingly, the prayer was heard because he was a pure devotee and the desire was so profound that out of these 12 Sila, one of the Sila was the name Damodar Sila, and that Sila transformed into Radharaman deities. So it is a self-manifested deities, and 11 Sila still remain as it is. So Gopal Bhatt Goswami worship 11 Sila and this Radharaman deity. And that detail was given to me by His Holiness Padmanabha Swami Maharaj. He always invite me for lunch at his house, and he realized so many wonderful pastimes of Gopal Bhatt Goswami. Very nice to dwell on it. Knowing the priests of Radharaman to be respected, learned Sanskritists, some of whom also read English, Abhay had brought with him a few copies of the Back to Godhead. He met Vishwambar Goswami, a young priest in his 30s, who after the death of his father had left his law practice and taken over some of the temple management. The temple was run under a caste Goswami system, and thus for 500 years, Vishwambara's ancestor had handed down charge of the temple. So right now it's run by the Padmanabha Swami. Haribol. Although Vishwambara had met many sadhus, he was immediately struck by Abhay's gentle and humble demeanor. He accepted the copies of Back to Godhead and sat and talked with Abhay. What a wonderful. Abhay then continued along Vrindavan's winding lanes to visit another temple, Radha Damodar temple. He passed old Babajis and women carrying a water, a commercial shop beside an open porch where people worship Shivalinga, monkeys sitting atop a high concrete wall and ranging from roof to roof, ledge to ledge, charter and gesture as Abhay walked beneath. As the morning progressed, barefoot children had begun to appear more frequently, playing within the open doorways. As he walked along chanting Japa, his right hand in his bead bag, his lips moving softly, hardly anyone in Vrindavan knew him. But as an elderly, cultured Bengali gentleman, he did not seem an unusual sight. He was a religious Baba in a town devoted entirely to the religion. So Abhay would regularly visit Vrindavan's important temples, and afterwards he would shop, returning to his room around 11 with vegetables for cooking. Using the kerosene burner and a 3-tar cooker, he would cook rice, potatoes, and sometimes sabji. Tamal Krishna Maharaj told me that Gurudev showed him how to become an expert cook. And then he saw this 3-tar pressure, not a pressure cooker, I think it's a cooker. I don't know, it's a pressure cooker, must be. And you can cook 3 things at a time. And you know, all the Western sannyasis, they never think that you can cook so many things in one pot. Tamal Krishna Maharaj told me personally that Prabhupada saw him. He would also cook chapatis, and he would take only 1 meal a day, Haribol, at noon, and in the evening, a cup of milk. So if somebody wants to go on diet, Prabhupada also is giving the hint how we should do the fasting. When he did not have time to cook, he would take the prasadam of the deity. After lunch, he would nap for 15 minutes, Haribol, and then write. You know, the 15 minutes, that's called the power nap. You sit on the chair, hold the heavy chain or something, and just go to sleep. And when you get to the hard sleep, you will drop the keys and it will make the noise and you get up. That 15 minutes of nap is equivalent to 1 hour of sleep. So in the afternoon, you can take a little nap like that, so you don't have to sleep too much at night. This also, Tamal Krishna Maharaj showed me personally how to take the power nap. He was so kind teaching me. every small things. And after lunch, he would nap for 15 minutes and then write. He rarely received visitor, but stayed alone, writing. Just before sunset, he would again go out visiting temples. At Kesighat, he would pass by sadhus, sitting alone here and there, facing the Yamuna. The river itself was little trafficked. Sometime a boat or two slowly moving on the river's placidity. Sometime a fish splashed in the water, or a bird winged along the river, watchful. Kesighat was quiet and beautiful, especially after the sun has relented for the day. Sadhus would hail Abhay on sight with Vrindavan's common greeting, Jai Radhe, and Abhay would return his Hare Krishna. Hare Bol. So this is a wonderful pastimes. It's so relishing to read these pastimes of these great Acharya. We can learn so many things. How much we need to eat, how much we need to sleep, how to uh, plan our day. Everything they do so nicely and punctually. This is the way that we can become fixed in our devotion. At least we should bisect our day and then do the same thing over and over so that it should become a part of our life. Then you don't have to even think. So with those thoughts, I would like to offer my humble obeisances at the dusk of these wonderful Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. They are so kind to wake us everybody early and join on the Zoom call giving their kind association. Very, very grateful for their association. Vanchakalpatarubhasya kripa sindhu bhayavacha patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So anybody has any question, comment, correction?